Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakha Kudah. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Debt as a Weapon. It's a little windy, not much out here, but let me know if you can hear me, just to make sure that it's not, the wind ain't messing up the sound, because if it is, I'll plug my headset in loud and clear. Okay, cool. All right, so pretty much the name of this one is Debt as a Weapon, and pretty much this is why you have an individual by the name of, or had an individual by the name of Maya Amschel Bauer, which his name was changed to Rothschild, that said, "Give me control of a nation's money and I care not who makes the laws." Because pretty much when you control money, you control the laws. Because as the old saying goes, money talks, bullshit walks. And that's pretty much what it is. The reason why they took over and manipulated the whole money system was because they have a plan, and that plan that they have is set up to enslave the whole world financially through debt, as the scriptures say. Now what I want to do is I want to look up the word debt on an offline dictionary. I want to see what that says real quick. It says debt, the state of owing something, especially money. Money or goods, services owed by one person to another. An obligation to pay or do something. So the debt comes by way of what? It comes by way of this deceitful, fraudulent money system that is in place. And there's a reason why it's set up that way. And the reason why it's set up that way is because they have an agenda. And that agenda is to enslave the world by debt, because they want to make perpetual slaves. They want everything to move in the direction that they want it to move in. The Internet of Things, which they're merging man with machine. And every day as we see the technology evolving, we see this coming to pass more and more. And with the splicing of genes, the splicing of people's DNA, this one woman, she found out about RNA. And when they found out about that, they found a way to be able to change humans at the molecular level, change them from within. Splice certain things together to be able to change the mechanism, of a person's makeup. And that's what they're in the process of doing now, to be able to merge everything together. This is what all the geo is about, the graph to the een, the ox, the rest. That's what that's all about. It's all a part of the merging of man with machine. And they're trying to be the Most High. And they know that all people on the earth have to be obedient to the Lord, because if not, the Lord is going to destroy them. So they're trying to play the role of the Most High. And through their technology, they've accomplished, and are accomplishing this venture, that they have. So let's go real quick to Daniel chapter 12, verse 4. It says, "But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end." Because at one point, the mysteries of this Bible were hidden. Not many people, nobody was privy to it at one point, until the Lord caused a man by the name of Abba Bivens, which we believe in the spirit is Elijah the prophet coming back, is John the Baptist coming back, and he did not fall out the truth back then or now. And pretty much through that man, the Lord gave him inspiration and opened up his eyes to certain truths, or to the truth in general, and certain truths back then that were very important in bringing about the truth that we're teaching today. Because remember, the truth has gone through a path, because not one man gets every secret of the scriptures. That's why you have a body, and it went through certain, minor changes here and there, because pretty much it's pretty much the same thing that it was from back then, just a few minor changes here and there, and one of the major changes being that Cornelius is indeed an Israelite. And it used to be taught that he was an Edomite, but even back then, the idea was entertained that he may be an Israelite, even back then, but it wasn't time for it to come out. So pretty much, on all levels, it's still the same truth with a few little changes here and there, but it evolved. Then it says, and knowledge shall be increased. And the knowledge that shall be increased is the technology of this devil. Now you also see the truth being increased on the planet, and that's what we're going through, that change. But the major change goes through these different the different technology that Esau has, that they've used to set up the infrastructure of this world, through the 5G and through everything else that they have going on, setting everything up for total world domination, world surveillance, and ultimately having every human on the planet implanted with a chip, which the scriptures call the MOTB, and that's an acronym, for those of you that don't know, but you're gonna have to, we can't really say the phrase, because they like to clip pages for saying certain key words. That's why we have to speak in code in certain things. All right, so let's read this again, then we'll move on to the next scripture. It says, but thou, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro. Yeah, so at the end, what happened? It started speaking. These prophecies started speaking. The mysteries started to come alive, started to take root. And that's what you see going on today. All the way back from when the spirit was on Elder Abba Bivens, all the way up until today. When you see the major Hebrew Israelite camps that are teaching all go back to One West, and the other ones that are teaching that weren't part of One West, indirectly they learned from the One West camps. And that's why they're out there teaching, because had it been for the Old Testament heads, if they would have waited for the Old Testament heads, they would have never got fed to be able to bring out this word. So whether in sincerity or in pretense, the word is still preached, So it doesn't matter as long as the word is going out. So and it says, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. And that's what we're seeing going on right now in the world. And this is what Esau is using. There's a reason why they're pushing everything to be digital. You have the CBDC, right? Central Bank Digital Currency. You had UBI, Universal Basic Income. Giving everybody incentives to do everything online. And people are not really aware of what's really going on. So they're looking at it as extra money, free money, more money. So, I just got to do that for that? No problem, And what they're doing is they're playing along with Esau's, New World Order and his plans. Because ultimately, the ultimate goal is to merge man with machine, so that they can play the Most High. They can have things implanted into people that if a person tries to even act up, they'll flip a switch and they'll either shock you or switch to another part of your brain, or whatever the case may be. And you see those future movies that they show, which what they call a dystopian future, where people are emotionless, should I say. They're walking around like robots. They're programmed. They're taking certain medications to numb their feelings. And this is all what these devils want, all through the weapon of debt. Because a perfect way to get somebody to become a slave is to mix them with so much debt that it's impossible for them to get out of it or repay it. So let's go to the book of Proverbs 22. You already know the scripture. Proverbs 22:7. The rich ruleth over the poor. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're ruling over the poor. And the borrower is servant to the lender. The borrower is somebody that borrows. And when you borrow from the rich, which is the lender, what happens? You find yourself in debt. Now, when we read the word for debt is the state of owing something, especially money, right? Now, there was something else in here. Let me see if I can find it again. All right, so you know what? I'll move along from there. So what I want to do is let's go to Proverbs 22 and 26. I want to read that. We're in the same, 22 and 26. It says, "Be not thou one of them that strike hands, or of them that are sureties for debts." Striking hands meaning, a gambler and or a borrower. And then the sureties for debts, they're always in some kind of debt somehow, some way. Like if you watch the movie A Knight's Tale, I believe it was, you had the one guy that was a great orator. He used to go out there and officiate the business of Erwick von Liechtenstein, which was Heath Ledger's character. And he was very good at what he did, but he just had a problem with gambling. So he was always in debt. He was always a surety for debt. That's why in some scenes in the movie you'll see him bucket naked, because back then when you would be in debt, someone would come and take even your clothing from you. And the scriptures speak about it. If you take a pledge, that's a pledge. A person has nothing else but the clothes on their back, and they owe you, and you take it from them. You're supposed to return that back to them, because that's what they are able to clothe themselves with. But this is what these devils are doing. They're pushing people into a corner to where they have no other choice or remedy but to become a slave to them. And that's exactly what they want. So I looked up the word debt, right, or debts, because I wanted just to see what it said in the concordance. It says masha'ah. It just says loan. Matter of fact, let's look up the word loan in the offline dictionary. So you have debts and you have loans. A loan leads to debt, because if you borrow and you can't pay, then that means that you are a debtor. Loan, the temporary provision of money, usually at interest. See, and that interest, reason why you're borrowing money is because you can't afford it. You can't afford your living situation. So when you lend somebody money upon usury, which is scripture speak against, what happens is you cause them to be even more in debt, because the reason why they came to you in the first place is because they were in debt. They needed money. They needed a way out. And by you putting usury or interest on them, you're adding more to their woes. You're giving them a way out for the moment. But if they couldn't pay that first loan off, what makes you think they're going to be able to pay the loan off to you plus interest? Right. It says, give temporarily, let have for a limited time. Right, because when you give for a limited time, there's going to come a point where that loan is going to be called upon to be repaid. It says, Okay, that's not it. That's not. That's. I thought that was something else. You got a loan shark. All right. So now let's go from there. Let's go to the book of Proverbs, the 10th chapter now. Proverbs chapter 10. Just keep your eye on the front. Didn't does Elder Pastor always stress on keep your eyes on these economic, individuals, out there that speak about the economy? Why do you think he says keep your eye on the economy and see what's going on with the economy? Because the economy is the very thing that these devils are using to push the MOTB, to get the world to have people in the world as debt slaves. Now, if a brother could do me a solid and look up the word debt slave, the definition of it, debt slave or debt slavery, and if you could post it on here, because I can't go online right now because I'm using my phone for the lesson. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna read this Proverbs 10 and 15. It says, "The rich man's wealth is his strong city. The destruction of the poor is his poverty." You see? So now let's go from there, because it said that the rich man's wealth is a strong city. Let's go to the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 12. "For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense." It says, and that's the main point, wisdom is a defense and money is a defense. Now let's go, okay, here we go. Now we're rolling in. Debt bondage, also known as debt slavery. Bonded labor or peonage is the pledge of a person's service as security for the repayment for a debt or other obligation where the terms of the repayment are not clearly or reasonably stated. Right, and that's why, when you look at these devils, when you're dealing in law, when you're dealing in finance, and anything of that nature, the wording in these different contracts is never clear, and it's never meant to be clear, because they want to, have it so distorted, and you're more than likely not wise enough to pick up, that contract that you signed is not good because of the desperate mind state you have to try to get that loan. You see? But it's not black and white. It says repayment are not clearly or reasonably stated, and the person who is holding the debt thus has some control over the laborer, which we just read about that. All right, we just read about that the borrower is servant to the lender. And we as a people are in a position, because of the curses, that we can't lend to anybody, but people can lend to us as a whole. All right. So now there was another point that came on. Let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 20. 19. "A feast is made for laughter, and wine maketh merry, but money answereth all things." Because as we read, the rich man's wealth is a strong city. But it says the poverty of the poor is his destruction, or something along those lines. Let's see. The rich man's wealth is a strong city, but the destruction of the poor is their poverty. That's right. So now let's go from there back to Proverbs 22 and 16. It says, "He that oppresses the poor to increase his riches." And this is exactly what these devils did. Let's go from there real quick to Micah, the 2nd chapter. And this is exactly what they did. Micah 2 and 1. "Woe to them that woe to them, or destruction to them, that devise iniquity." Because that is iniquity. When you knowingly put out a currency, which the word currency just means to keep flowing, to keep moving, right? That is not backed by anything, and you know that by lending that currency or that paper money or whatever the case it is, fiat money, you're giving people something that is worthless, and that worthless piece of paper is causing these people to be indebted to you. That's fraud. And this is why it says in James the 5th chapter, how ye rich men, for the miseries that shall come upon you. Because the way, yeah, you're in a prominent position, you're in a top position, you live in, lavish, you're faring sumptuously every day, you're living deliciously, you're living carelessly, but the way you got that was not by right. And the scriptures, which is the ultimate equalizer, because it's the word of the Most High Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, is going to condemn you and is condemning you. And you're about to be judged and taken out of your position because you have defrauded the world through your currency. And you made a deal, with the world pretty much, that in order for you to enter into World War II, the dollar had to be the world reserve currency, in so many words. You could, go more into depth with the history on that, but that's, roughly paraphrasing. So you pretty much got the world in a trick bag. So it says, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. And that word power goes back to the word Allah, or Allah, which means God. So the power in your hand, meaning you have that God-like power in your hand to make decisions on the earth that will affect the world. You have the ability to stop poverty. You have the ability to stop hunger. You have the ability to stop famine. You have the ability to stop disease to a certain degree. But you won't do that because of your avarice, which is just a fancy way of saying greed. All right. Then it says this, and they covet fields. See? They covet, meaning they see something that they want. And how do they get it from you? Through deception, through that fraud, through, this fake money system. That's why they go to different countries, to the IMF, and do what? They lend money to these nations at a crazy interest rate, which they know that nation ain't going to be able to pay. But then the stipulations in the contract is, well, if you can't pay, then we take this from you, we take that from you, we take over your resources, we take over your land, we take over your people, so on and so forth. And it's the same thing done over. All over the planet. That's how these devils operate. All over the planet they've done this. And this is how they amass their wealth. Within the last 2 years, these devils done like tripled or quadrupled their riches. Based off of this fake thing. In 2 years time, actually 1 year, but 2 years, because we are we're going into on 2 years. In 1 year, but in 2 years, they've managed to either triple or quadruple their money. Something that they've been doing incrementally from the time when they were set up. They set up their banking, so-called banking dynasties around the world. So in a matter of 2 years, they either tripled or quadrupled their wealth. How about that? All right, so it says, and they covet fields and take them by violence. Because what happens if you don't pay off your debt? If you owe the IRS, let's say, what happens? They come and take your stuff by violence. Because you have instances where they've come to people's homes, taking them out of their homes, taking their riches, like the situation with Red Fox. They even came and took the rings off of his fingers, man. Because that's how they get down. They put people in a position to where they can't pay off these debts. And then when they collect, they'll throw people in jail and put them in slavery, so that they can pay back that loan, which that money that they gave them is worthless. But people believe that it's worth something. That's where you have something called credit. Credit, when you loan something to somebody on credit, that means that you believe that they're going to pay you back. And that's all these FRN notes or these so-called dollar bills are. It's nothing but a promissory note. It's a debt-bearing note. And when the people accept it, they become subject to whatever comes along with it. And that's why you have so many people in debt. And the more money you make, it seems like the more money you make, the more in debt you are. But it's because the bottom line of that money, so-called money, has no value to it. So there's no way to pay something without something of value. You cannot pay something with a debt, because eventually that debt is going to follow you. You could pay a credit card with a credit card, but that debt will never go away. It's always there lingering. So how can you take $1 that's a debt-bearing note to pay off something, when it doesn't have any value to it? You see? So it says, and they covered fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. And that's what they do. And that's where they come into people's lands and take their land. That's why they came here to, to so-called North America and took the land away from Gad. This devil is very devious. So let's read that again. Proverbs 22:16. He that oppresseth the poor to increase his riches, and he that giveth to the rich shall surely come to want. Because they're using debt as a weapon, as the name of the lesson is. Now let's go from there to the Apocrypha, to the book of Sirach or Ecclesiasticus. We're going to read a couple of verses here in the book of Ecclesiasticus chapter 13, and we're going to hit verse 3 first. It says, the rich man hath done wrong, and yet he threateneth withal. The poor is wrong, and he must entreat also. And there's another one like this in the book of Proverbs. It says, the rich man hath done wrong, and yet threateneth withal. It says the poor is wronged, and he must entreat also. Now there's a scripture here in the 27th chapter, and the 2nd verse. It says, as a nail sticketh fast between the joining of the stones, so the sin stick close between buying and selling, because it's all a racket. They rip you off, and especially when they're giving you FRNs that are worthless. They're giving you FRNs that are worthless. So when they're giving you the FRNs that are worthless, you become more in debt. Instead of being able to get out of that debt, you become deeper and deeper in debt. And that is the plans of the illuminated ones. They're about keeping people in debt so that because they know once you're in such debt that you can't get out of it, you have to give yourself over and your goods. That's why there's a saying now, which I'm sure was old, you will own nothing and be happy. And this is the mentality that they're putting into people's minds. All right, so let's go. I got a precept here. Let's see, what's this say? Ecclesiastes 42:5. Wow, this is a lot. This is some good stuff here. But let's just go straight to the point. The 5th verse. All right, come on now. It says, and of merchants indifferent selling, see, of much correction of children, and to make the side of an evil servant to bleed. So, and of merchants indifferent selling. That's why it says that sin sticketh close between buying and selling. And that's the Z of the game. Because at the end of the day, the international bankers, they've got the world in a state of destruction through this whole debt system. And this is why they all that's why they got the world messed up. So like I'm a little distracted by this being around here messing around, but I had to take him out. I didn't want to, but he kept messing with me. So Salaki for that. So now let's go from there back to Sirach 13. Let's read 3 again. It says, the rich man hath done wrong, and yet threateneth withal. The poor is wrong, and he must entreat also. Now let's jump to the 18th verse. It says, what agreement is there between the hyena and the dog, and what peace between the rich and the poor? As the wild ass is the lion's prey in the wilderness, so the rich eat up the poor. See? And how do they do it? By putting them into debt. Because the rich, they don't get rich off of each other. They get rich off of the poor. As the poor become poorer, the rich increase their riches. Not off each other's back, off the backs of the poor. And this is something that's been going on forever. It says, as the wild ass is the lion's prey in the wilderness, so the rich eat up the poor. And as the proud hate humility, so doth the rich abhor the poor. And they'll avoid you at any cost. And when you watch that movie, A Knight's Tale, you know, you'll see how when they found out that he was a peasant, you know, everybody was looking down upon him. You know, the character that Heath Ledger played. You know, because he was playing a knight, but he kind of got up in there. He really, you know, didn't belong there. But, you know, I mean, you got to watch the movie. But when you're in that higher echelon, so to speak, and they find out that you're really a poor or peasant person, they treat you like shit. But when they know that you could be the biggest scumbag, but if you got money, they treat you good. That's how they do it. That's how they have it done in their circles. That's how the devil gets down. That's how the good lands. It's like it. Habakkuk chapter 2. And I got just a couple more precepts, you know, we're going to close it out because, you know, I mean, pretty much the name of the game is to have the world in debt. And that's how they'll be able to push this MOTB. That is the ultimate goal. And we see that in full bloom right now. If you can't see that that's what they're doing, then you're blind. Habakkuk 2:9. Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. And that's what you've done. You know, you've coveted evil covetousness to your empire, took away from the children of the Most High, you know, and so that you could be delivered from the power of evil, because the reason why people rip people off is to be able to live a better life. So yeah, you are living that better life, but there's a price to pay at the end. So Jeremiah chapter 22 and verse 13, it says, woe unto him that buildeth his house by unrighteousness. Why? Because you're going to, eventually it's going to fall, because it wasn't established on a sound foundation. It was established upon the blood of others. It was established upon fraud. It was established upon theft. It says, in his chambers by wrong, that useth his neighbor's service without wages, and giveth him not for his work. Yeah, and that's what you did since you came over to this side of the world. You know, you put the northern kingdom in captivity, made them work for nothing. Then you brought the southern kingdom over here. Once you decimated our forefathers to a certain point, you brought the southern kingdom over here and gave them the same treatment. You know, put them to work. Free labor. Only thing you gave them was room, board, and food. And the worst of the food at that. Treated them like shit and still didn't pay them anything. So what do you think is going to happen to you? He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 19. And verse 13. Thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor. And that's what you've done. You've defrauded. You've committed fraud upon the children of the Most High and upon the world too. But we're concerned with the children of the Most High, the Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, so on and so forth. You know? And no matter where they're at on the planet, no matter what they look like, as long as their spirit, you know, their lineage goes back to one of the tribes of the nation of Israel. Neither rob him. And that's what you've done. You've robbed people. That's why it says that the rust of these things is going to be a witness against you. It says, the wages of him that is hired shall not abide with thee all night until the morning. You have instances where you pay people weekly. You have instances where you pay people bi-weekly, you know? And that's wrong. A person works for you, that same night they're supposed to be paid. You're supposed to have money in your pocket every day when you work for somebody. Every day. At the end of the day, boom, they give you your wages. Malachi chapter 3. Just cracking up because I was thinking about something. But I'm not going to bore you with that. Malachi chapter 3 verse 5. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, and against the adulterers, and against false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages. And you've done that. You've done all of these. The widow and the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, saith the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai of hosts. That's right, because you don't fear the Lord. There's no fear in your heart, you know, of the Most High. That's why you do what you do. You have no conscience in that deep, dark, black soul of yours. Deuteronomy 24 and 14. Thou shalt not oppress an hired servant that is poor and needy, whether he be of thy brethren or of thy strangers that are in thy land within thy gate. Now this is a law for Israel, but they claim to be the people of the Lord. They claim to be following the Bible, so they're breaking his law. It says, at his day thou shalt give him his hire, neither shall the sun go down upon it, for he is poor, and setteth his heart upon it. Lest he cry against thee unto the Lord, and it be sin unto thee. And that's why you have James, which is a precept off of that was James, the 5th chapter. I'm just going to get the main point. James chapter 5 and verse 4. It says, behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. And what do you think the Lord's going to do? He's hearing all these cries, all these complaints because of your undoing and the things that you're doing. You know, he's going to judge you for it. Now let's go, the last precept I have here is in the book of James also, 1 and 11. It says, for the sun is no sooner risen with a burning heat, but it withereth the grass, and the flower thereof falleth, and the grace of the fashion of it perisheth. So also shall the rich man fade away in his ways. Right, because why are you going to fade away in your ways? Because the way that you got your riches was not by right. And this is why you have you concocted a way to push these Federal Reserve notes on the world without any or with the intention of having everyone to be in perpetual servitude, because you understand the concept of debt slavery. You understand that if somebody owes, eventually they're going to have to pay. And you understand that if the person doesn't have anything to pay, they have to give their goods up. And that's why when you go for a loan in the bank, you have to put up collateral. Collateral is something that you give of value as a hedge against that debt. Let's look up the word collateral real quick. Collateral. It says a security pledged for the repayment of a loan. So when you can't repay the loan, what does that mean? They strip you of that pledge. Before I read any more of that, all right. Right. The instance with Judah, right? When he laid with Tamar, right? he left her a pledge, which was his staff, his signet, and something else. I forget what it was. And that was a pledge. That was a promissory thing that he would repay her because he didn't have anything to pay her with. So he gave her that as a pledge that he would pay her what he owed her for her services. So let's look this up real quick. Matter of fact, Exodus 22:26. If thou at all take thy neighbor's raiment to pledge, thou shalt deliver it unto him, by that the sun goeth down. And that's how you're supposed to do their raiment, which is their clothing. Because it says, for that is his covering only. It is his raiment for his skin, wherein shall he sleep. And it shall come to pass when he crieth unto me that I will hear, for I am gracious. All right, so let's look up that word pledge. That would be Exodus 22:26. Let me try this one here because I turned off the other one. Exodus 22:26. Just bear with me 1 second. All right, so we got the word pledge, which is chabal, to wind tightly as a rope, specifically by a pledge, to divert, destroy, writhe, turion, brand, bring, destroy, offend, pledge, take a pledge. So we read what a pledge is. Let's read that again. Well, that's collateral is a security pledged for the repayment of a loan. Descended from a common ancestor. That's something else. A security pledge for the repayment of a loan. And they know that once you're not able to pay, they know the history of debt bondage. You know, they know the history of the scriptures, how the Egyptians gave themselves and their homes and their lands, you know, as collateral for food. And they know that food is one of the greatest motivators. Hunger is one of the greatest motivators to get people to do what you want them to do. And they understand that. You know? So everything that they've done has been under false pretense to defraud people. All right, the brother put pledge. Pledge and promise is to promise. Okay. Something to someone. To give something over as security for repayment. Also promise faith to, from pledge, and from old French, to stand surely for, right, be responsible. Matter of fact, in the scriptures it speaks about surety. Be not surety. So let me see if I can find that one real quick. Just bear with me right quick. Let me just look up surety. Surety. All right. Let me go to Proverbs. There's quite only a couple of them. Let's see. Right. Proverbs 17:18. A man void of understanding striketh hands, and becometh surety in the presence of his friend. So let's look up that word surety. That was Proverbs 17. Proverbs 17 and 18. Let's look up the word surety. It's the word irabah. A bargain or exchange, something given as security. That is literally a token of safety. In other words, that lets them know that you're going to pay them back, because what you're giving them for a pledge is something of value to you. Or metaphorically, a bondsman, pledge, surety. All right? And that's what they're doing. And this is why they're pushing the whole, you know, online thing, everything being digital, because they know that eventually their plans are to insert this technology of the RFID microchip in people. All right, it said, I looked up the word pledge. It says a deposit of personal property as security for a debt, and that's pretty much it is. So they understand the concept of debt slavery, debt bondage or whatever you want to call it, and they know that that's the best way to get these people to do what they want them to do, and that's why you see them moving in the direction that they're moving, because through their technology they're able to build an infrastructure that can connect all people to the grid, so to speak, once they put that mark inside of them. So with that, I pray that you brothers have been edified and your few sisters. Till the next time I say, Shalom.